Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. I'm Councilmember Jose Huizar. This will be a committee of one today. Councilmember Mitch Englander could not be here today, and Councilmember Cedillo is in the Economic Development Committee and cannot attend as well. So with that, we will go to item number 5, Director's Report. We will receive and file our Director's Report. Item number 1, we will approve on, we have a card, so we'll hear the card first. One card. Yes, Jim McQuiston. Welcome.
Jim McQuiston. I don't have much to say on this. The only thing I want to mention is this really takes a plan amendment, and we got to start following the state code instead of just changing the zoning without concerning the plan.
Thank you. So with that, we will move that item to full council. Approved. Next item is we're going to do item number 3, and that item will be continued to January 27th per the applicant's request. Item 3 moved to January 27th per the applicant request. Item 4. Read that into the record.
Sure.
Please.
Item 4 is a Cultural Heritage Commission report relative to the Bartlett House at 1829 North Kenmore Avenue.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Yes, good afternoon. Councilmember Ken Bernstein with the Department of City Planning and Office of Historic Resources. This item is coming back again to you as a result of a Cultural Heritage Commission action last week. The Commission at its December 4th meeting took an action to rescind the prior action of the Cultural Heritage Commission on October 2nd to not declare the property a historic cultural monument. This was taken based on guidance from the Office of the City Attorney as a result of an alleged Brown Act issue. The Commission therefore took a step to rescind its previous action. The Commission held that meeting at the site at 1829 North Kenmore Avenue, and there was an opportunity for 2 of the commissioners and members of the public to tour the entire property, the Bartlett residence, and numerous members of the public were present. The Commission then reconvened later at City Hall on December 4th and reconsidered its action on declaration as a historic cultural monument, and once again voted on a 5-0 vote not to declare the property a historic cultural monument. The Commission, in taking this action, found that while the Bartlett residence is unquestionably associated with the master architect A.C. Martin, it found that the work, that the house was not a notable work of A.C. Martin, and therefore found that it did not meet historic cultural monument criteria. Representatives of the Office of the City Attorney are present today if you have any questions on the procedural or legal issues.
Okay, thank you. Charles Fisher. Oh, I'm sorry, we got late card. Mr. Resnick, you're representing.
They're the applicant, so they go first. I mean, they're the.
You're representing the property owner,
yes,
correct?
yes.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay. So Charles Fisher. 5 minutes. This is the applicant.
Good afternoon, Charlie Fisher, 140 South Avenue 57. I wrote the nomination on this particular property, and I've been writing nominations for well over 25 years now. And in my experience, I was actually very shocked the way this thing has gone, and the only thing I could think of is that there was a timing issue. There were a number of issues that came up This was brought to my attention late in the process. I had no idea what was happening here until just a few months ago. This property had been in the works for a small lot subdivision, and it was never properly vetted. The applicant never took the time to pull a building permit to see what was on the site, and the result is there are some CEQA issues here in that this particular property should have been properly vetted, and then the environmental process should have been based on the true aspect of the house and not what the perceived aspect was. Had this item been one that was brought by the owner to be declared, this nomination would have sailed right on through and nobody would have questioned it. But because of the circumstances, I think there's been a lot of undue pressure to not declare this property because the process is so far along, a process that was flawed from the beginning. And unfortunately, we're here with this situation because of that. The house clearly qualifies. There's a reason that one of the issues, the main issue, was the interior of this house is not a fantastic knock your socks off interior. Bartlett, the owner, was the buyer for Hamburger's department store. He later was the chairman of Blackburn Department Stores. But as buyer for Hamburger's, he used the house as a showcase for furniture. So he did not want the interior to detract from the furniture. He wanted to be able to call attention to the furniture, so he wanted the interior of the house as a background for that furniture. He also lived in the house for a number of years. We got this information from his granddaughter and great-grandson, who are familiar with that particular aspect of the Bartlett residence. And I do not believe that this has really been vetted properly, and it's unfortunate. And we feel that there's been a clear problem with the California Environmental Quality Act in that it had the full information of this house been available, especially the architect, we could have had a different situation for earlier on in the process. So we're just saying the process has not gone the way it should have. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben Resnick or Ellen Murdoch?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Ben Resnick with Jeffrey Mangels, Butler & Mitchell, representing the property owner. I think we're going to keep it short, and I think Mr. Murdoch is willing to waive his time to speak. This is back before you again for the procedural reasons that Ken Bernstein explained. I do want to just respond to Mr. Fisher's comments that things would have been different had something been caught earlier in the process. What he would have gotten is a thorough review by the Office of Historical Cultural Commission and the Cultural Heritage Commission of this site. That, in fact, happened, and it happened because of the motion brought by Councilman Tom LaBonge, and the city, in fact, did look at this property. The Cultural Heritage Commission did review it and declined to designate. And so the very result that Mr. Fisher wanted to have earlier in the process, he got later in the process, but he got the process. He got the analysis. He got the review. It's just that the city folks disagree with his conclusion that this is meritorious of a historical designation. So in any event, this has been declined now twice by the Cultural Heritage Commission, and we hope that the council can quickly affirm that so that this project can move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Marion Dodge. After Marion Dodge is Doug Haynes.
Good afternoon, Council Member. The Los Feliz Improvement Association, representing 1,000 households in Los Feliz, supports the motion to consider the designation of the Oswald Bartlett House, designed by Master Architect A.C. Martin, as a City of Los Angeles Historic Cultural Monument. A.C. Martin was a prominent architect whose buildings have had a profound influence on the City of Los Angeles. 4 of his buildings are already HCMs, including City Hall. Additionally, 3 of Martin's buildings are on the National Register of Historic Places. Since A.C. Martin designed almost exclusively civic buildings, the Bartlett House is a rare example of a single-family residence. It's also a unique example of an arts and crafts movement, colonial revival building, which shows the transition and growth of A.C. Martin's style. Important to the Los Feliz neighborhood, it and the half-dozen remaining large craftsman-style homes on the street are a reminder of the early growth of Los Feliz.
Thank
I
you.
urge you to support the nomination.
Thank you very much. Doug Haynes and then Bill Zaid.
My name is Doug Haynes. I'm with East Hollywood Neighborhood Council. I'm also the board of the Hollywood Studio District Neighborhood Council. I'm also a former board member of Hollywood Heritage. I just wanted to emphasize all three neighborhood councils that are surrounding this location, including Los Feliz, strongly supported the nomination. The tour had a large turnout. Everyone supported who came, including neighbors and members of the neighborhood councils and other members of the public, all supported. I haven't heard one person at any of these hearings, I've been to everyone, say that they don't think that this is meritorious and that this should not be landmarked. So I hope that politics will be taken out of this. Unfortunately, it's taken over and controlled this whole process, and that this will be considered on its merits, and that this landmark building will be recognized, and in any other district, I believe. Although I do want to express that appreciation to Tom LaBonge, but any other situation, this would have been landmark with no question. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Zaid, Abraham Sugimonian.
Get 1 minute? Okay, my name is Bill Zaid. I'm the applicant. I also happen to be the chair of the Hollywood Studio District Neighborhood Council and on East Hollywood. Since the beginning, when we first tried to get this nominated, I got a call from a mutual friend of myself and Alon, who happens to be an airport commissioner and friends with the highest officer in this city. He said that on behalf of Alon, he would try to scuttle this. Since then, that is exactly what has happened. The CHC, which happens to be appointed by that office, not coincidentally, has reviewed it in accordance with that consideration behind it, which is at no level would this become a monument preserved for the city of LA. So if you have enough influence, it seems, and enough connections, you can get a 100-year-old A.C. Martin house torn down eventually and build a small lot subdivision. I bring this up because since the beginning, this is exactly what this has moved towards. I would hope that you would change that. Thank you.
Thank you. Abraham Sugimonian, Sonia Sugimonian.
To everyone, including the city attorney, you need to reopen the CEQA process due to the new information that has come to light regarding the historic significance of this property that was not known at the time the mitigating negative declaration was approved. This shows that the impact of the project are far more significant than previously thought and are not being mitigated. A full investigation must be done considering all options to pursue before suggesting even that the house can be destroyed. It's not okay for the developer to lie on the CEQA. The South Los Feliz Improvement Association testified that Ken could not have green-lighted this development because nothing was done south of Franklin. Ken not only green-lighted what he couldn't, but based on that, it was fast-tracked through city planning and therefore bypassing the ERR. How does this happen without collusion? I asked that the city attorney pursue criminal charges and penalties against the developer. Had the developer not lied on the CEQA, none of this would be happening here. It is quite sad for our city that there is collusion between the mayor, the mayor's buddy, Ken Bernstein, a developer, and the Cultural Historic Commission. It's a rare A.C. Martin house, I beg you. It's the only one of two that we know to exist. The other one's already a monument. This is the only other one known to exist. It's hypocrisy to do one and not the other.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sonia? Sora? I'm trying to work out the...
Hello, my name is Sonia Sugimonian, and I'm a neighbor. So I'm just here to say that I'm very much against to tear down the house right across from me. It's a, like you know, A.C. Martin house, and it's very important. It's a cultural heritage, and it's going to be a shame if it's torn down. So right now, yes, it's a little bit neglected because the guy who owned the house was sick and, died, and nobody took care of the house. So, but otherwise, the house is a gorgeous house, and it's worth it to be saved.
Thank you. Staff to come up, please. Okay, so just to clear where we are, the Office of Historic Resources recommended denial of designation. The CHC confirmed that.
Correct.
And, you know, on its face, when I read this, I say, well, A.C. Martin helped design this building, and his notable work, one of the architects of this city that has really left an imprint on this city. On its face, I look at this and I say, well, you know, why wouldn't we want to designate this? And the fact that he didn't design many single-family residences, that leads me down a path to think, well, shouldn't we designate and save some of his work where he did? I mean, it makes it that much more valuable. But I understand as well that there are criteria as to when a structure is designated or not. So given some of what I've mentioned, again, can you walk me through why this was recommended not to be designated?
Certainly, and again, Ken Bernstein with the Office of Historic Resources. Yes, the criteria that were most in question based on the application, first of all, was whether this was a building that embodies the distinguishing characteristics of an architectural style, as an example of colonial revival architecture. And while it is in fact designed in the colonial revival style, it has some features of colonial revival architecture. Both staff and the commission did not feel its architectural quality rose to the level of an individual historic cultural monument. I think many of the commissioners expressed the view that clearly this would have been, if there were a historic preservation overlay zone in the neighborhood, if this were a historic district, this would be a very fine contributing structure to that historic district, but that it did not individually, as an architectural specimen, rise to the level of individual designation. Then the question became whether this was a notable work of a master architect, and as I indicated in the staff report, that it's unquestioned that A.C. Martin clearly was a master architect and significantly shaped Los Angeles. This building, $1 Million Theater, the May Company built many other significant landmarks. And while it's true he did not design many residential structures, both staff and again the commission on a 5-0 vote, all of them having had an opportunity to see the residence, felt that this was not a notable work of A.C. Martin. It did not have a notable place in his overall body of work. It had not been cited either by the A.C. Martin firm or by third-party researchers as representing a notable work of Martin. The commission and the council did designate an additional house, the C.C. Ganal House of A.C. Martin, designated as Historic Cultural Monument number 1012 in 2012. That was a prairie-style residence, and overall the commission felt that was of a much higher quality, particularly with respect to some of its interior features. So while it's certainly a very difficult issue, and I think obviously on a personal level, many of us would want to see a building like this that contributes to the overall historic character of the community, would want to see that preserved. We try to make the very best professional recommendations that we can as to whether individually this is elevated to the level of an individual landmark, an individual historic cultural monument.
Thank you. Well, it's difficult to go against the more in-depth review of the Office of Historic Resources and the Cultural Heritage Commission, and unless my standard, and there's no real standard, this committee takes, each council member kind of goes through its own mental process as to when they would designate something or not, but here I didn't see anything that stands egregious in terms of your review or process or research on this, and so I'll move to adopt CHC's recommendations and to deny the inclusion in the city's list of HCMs. And we'll rescind the last committee action on this matter.
Okay.
Well, we first rescind and then
Right.
adopt.
Or you could actually also reaffirm the action of Plum on November the 4th, which
Okay.
was also to deny.
We'll
Yeah.
reaffirm that. Okay.
Yeah.
Adrian
Aye.
Corsani, City Attorney's Office. Good afternoon. Actually, if the first action could be taken, that would be more appropriate to rescind and then act on this this item.
Okay.
So the way you stated it the first time.
So as a recommendation from the chair to the full council, we'll move to, we'll recommend a rescission of the last committee action and then a recommendation to adopt the CHC recommendation to deny inclusion in the city's list of HCMs, historical cultural monuments. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item.
The next item, Councilman, is item 2, which is an appeal by Bruce Cooper. This is a track map appeal for a 5 small lot subdivision in CD5.
Okay.
Good afternoon, council member.
Afternoon.
My name is Heather Blamers with the Department of City Planning. The project before you today is a second level appeal of the vesting tentative track map located at 1167 Bellagio Road for the subdivision of 5 small lots. Just to give you some history on the project, prior to the initial public hearing, the applicant met with staff and we worked with the applicant to substantially revise the project with regard to site layout and design and some massing issues, and we even were able to reduce a unit. The initial request was for 6 lots. We had it down to 5 lots. With that, the Deputy Advisory Agency approved the request on August 6, 2014, after a lengthy discussion about some of the issues that the community raised with regard to massing and other details like parking and entrances to the site and roof decks. Subsequently, an appeal was filed based on those issues, and on October 15th, 2014, the West Los Angeles Area Planning Commission heard the appeal and sustained the Deputy Advisory Agency's decision denying the appeal. On November 10th, the appellant filed the incident request that's before you based on some of those issues I was talking about before. The Deputy Advisory Agency does act under limited authority given that the Subdivision Map Act is governing the subdivision of land in this case. The Deputy Advisory Agency cannot govern design or massing of a building. However, staff did work to substantially reduce massing of the project and, like I said before, reduce a unit. So the Advisory Agency and the West Los Angeles Planning Commission both upheld the decision based on the project's compliance with the Subdivision Map Act, with the Small Lot Ordinance, the underlying zoning, and with its substantial conformance to meet the intent of the Small Lot Design Guidelines.
Thank you. And before I go on, there's one question.
Sure.
Can you clarify the height rule as it pertains to the Q condition?
Sure.
It states that it should be 32 feet. The appellant questions this based on the municipal code section of the code. So can you clarify that a little bit, please?
Yeah, so the Q actually limits the height of the building to 32 feet. However, it does allow in our code for projections, allowable projections up to 10 feet, which would be stairwells, elevator shafts, and the like. In this case, there is a stairwell that goes up to 9 feet. But the building height is within the 32.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I'm here to answer any question.
Okay. The appellant, Bruce Kuiper.
Hello, good afternoon, Chairman.
Good afternoon. 5 minutes.
My name is Bruce Kuiper. I reside 4 lots away from this proposed project. If I could just respond to the answer that was just given on your question on the height limit. I've cited in my appeal papers that the municipal code says only if you're in a 30-foot zone or a 45-foot zone can you go up 10 feet. This is a 32-foot zone. It doesn't say between 30 and 45. It says 30 or 45. This is in a 32-foot zone. This project wants to replace a 60-year-old single-family home with 5 townhomes under the small lot subdivision ordinance. It's surrounded by single-family homes. There are no curb cuts in front of it. It's got 3 similar single-family, single-story homes right next to it, and all around the other direction it's all single-family. There is some multifamily at the very beginning of the street. The main argument here is that the Subdivision Map Act says you cannot approve a tract map if it's inconsistent with the community plan. And I've set forth a bunch of quotes in there from the Bel Air Beverly Crest community plan and how this doesn't conform to that. The only response to the text of the community plan was for the advisory agency, in response to my comments before he did the letter of determination, was to say that, well, it says there should be affordable housing. Well, these units are going to be close to $1 million according to their planning application. That's not affordable housing. It's also inconsistent with the Subdivision Map Act because the RD 1.5 zone, and under the code it says specific plan zoning, requires setbacks and minimum lot sizes, which this goes below. So it doesn't comply with that. It also violates the city charter. I believe it's section 562 that sets forth the requirements for variances. None of that was done here. So it's violating the existing code without the proper analysis under the city charter 562. On the CEQA analysis, my main concern first in my section on this is that there was no consideration, certainly nothing, no evidence of it in the MND of the 405 project. We're 2 blocks in from the 405, and hopefully it'll be finished soon, but it's been going on a long time. That's a huge project. That was never discussed in the analysis. All that was checked was the box that says there won't be any cumulative impacts. There's also a brand new 23-unit building that's still under construction, although it's close to being finished. But more importantly, CEQA requires that you also consider past projects, not just the current ones, and none of that was done here. Additionally, this will physically divide a community. That was one of the checklist items in the CEQA. This is going to be a massive 3-story plus roof deck, 5-column townhomes replacing a single-family 1-story home. And it's at the end of the street. It's at the end of this section with the alley, and it's got single-family homes all the way around it. So you're going to go single-family home, and then this monstrosity. It's going to be a monolith because they're all enclosed, even though they're separate lots and foundations. Also, the neighborhood council voted down by a strong vote a motion from its planning committee that barely passed to support the project, but that was voted down by the council. And lastly, I would like to add to the record, I did it a few hours ago by email. I recently received copies of, they were difficult to get from the county recorder's office, of the original deed restrictions, the CC&Rs, and there are 4 different documents there, and they all have, either 3 or all 4 have restrictions for single-family use, separation between buildings, and no flat roof areas beyond 25%. These rooftop decks are flat, and they're more than 25% of the area. And lastly, the neighbor across the alley, who's 3 doors down from me, he has an easement on half that alley. They want to now replace the 1 garage for the single-family home with 3 garages on that alley. They're going to be overburdening and making excessive use of his easement. Thank you very much for your time.
Great, thank you. Bennett Resnick, Farhad Ashaft. Would you be taking up the full 5 with your owner, or does the owner?
I may leave him a minute. I may leave him a minute. We'll see, or two. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Ben Resnick with Jeffer, Mangles, Butler, and Mitchell, representing the property owner here. I handled the appeal at the Area Planning Commission as well, where the commission recognized and pointed out, after an extensive hearing and looking at this and hearing from a lot of witnesses and looking at this, that this is a multifamily zone property. One could build by right an apartment building of 8 units, that's 3 stories up to the 32-foot limit, by right. One could also add, with density bonus, an additional floor and an additional height. But instead what we have here is a very sensitive small lot subdivision with only 5 units. Initially it actually was 6, but after meetings with the neighbors over the course of the last year, the applicant reduced it to 5. So you have 5 townhomes where, rather than renting out apartment units or selling flat condos, a resident in LA would be able to buy a townhome and own that townhome and the land under it, have his own parking right in front. And there are no common areas. These are like single-family homes, but there are 5 of them. But it's a multifamily zone, and the rest of the block to the south is all multifamily. And just a few doors down, there's a very large project. I don't know if it's a condo or an apartment building that's almost complete. This property is also it has an alley bordering it on one side and an alley behind it. So it's got 3 access points. Now, it's true there are single-family homes going to the north. That's where the zoning changes. And so what the Area Planning Commission looked at was the plan, the general plan for the area, which clearly demarcated this stretch of block as multifamily and the remaining going to the north is single-family. And being that, as the gentleman pointed out, it's 2 blocks from the freeway and it's right there in an area where multifamily is appropriate, we think this is an appropriate project. I'm not sure what he submitted today having to do with some CCNRs, but we're not aware of it. Obviously, apartment buildings have been built here, multifamily has been. The zoning for it has been multifamily a long time, as is the general plan for the area. And so it complies. There is no variance application, so whatever variance findings the appellant thinks we didn't make, it's because we're not asking for variances. With respect to the roof projection for the stairwell, that's just within the code. Building and safety will have to approve it, obviously, when one pulls a building permit, but this structure will be within the 32-foot height limit. And so I think that really covers it. Did you want to add anything? Give your name first.
Farhad Ashafta, I'm the property owner and also the architect for the project. I just want to point out that this project changed dramatically after about 4 months of meeting with the technical staff representatives of the neighborhood council, in which we completely redesigned the building 4 times, and we reduced the number of units from 6 to 5. We removed all of our roof access staircases to the interior of the community. We redesigned the roof decks to make sure we respect the privacy of the neighbors. We did a visual study of seeing the roof decks are about 10 to 12 feet within the edge of the building, so you can never look down into the next door neighbors. And also there is a 23-unit apartment building that just got completed, 35 feet in height, just 3-4 properties down the street from us. The appellant doesn't even know who the developer was, doesn't know the name of him, doesn't know how many units were supposed to be planned until the building went under construction. I tried to do the good thing. I worked with the community. I redesigned my buildings. They know me. They've met with me many times. And I'm trying to do the right thing. Do 5 small lots, very appropriate transition between a very high density block into the residential. And we're completely separated from the single family home. This is a by right project. It's a multi-family zone site. And the same way that I can't say anything about the single family development that can potentially happen across the alley from me that be 45 feet tall, or however the size of it is as per code, I'm doing everything per code. I'm not asking for any reductions. I'm actually voluntarily meeting the requirements of the new design guidelines for a small lot, but I had submitted my project before and I didn't even have to comply with that. But I am complying. I'm increasing my front setback to 15 feet to be prevailing setback and line up with all the other residences. So I'm trying to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim McQuiston. After Jim McQuiston is Marion Dodge.
Jim McQuiston. On another matter, I went to the commission and heard this case and heard all the testimony, and none of it seemed to be on point. And as you see in my statement that I put in there, I testified that these people were just not getting the point, not the applicant, but the people who were objecting, and that they should have objected to the community plan before because it was zoned for multiple housing and so forth. The problem is afterwards I got to thinking about that, and what we're doing is reverting multiple zoning, multiple family residences into single family residences. That's the purpose of the small lot subdivision. And if you do that in a multi-family place, you're actually defeating the plan, because the plan has a certain density, and if you lower the density, you're not fulfilling the plan's goal. So this is the major issue that I see in this, whether or not you really want to defeat the plan.
Marion Dodge.
I'm Marion Dodge, President of the Hillside Federation. The Hillside Federation supports the appeal of the conditional approval of the small lot subdivision. It is not a by right project. The MAP Act requires compliance with the community plan, and it is not consistent with the Bel Air Community Plan, which states the open and natural character of single-family development of Bel Air Beverly Crest community is desirable and deserving of public protection. Preservation of low-density single-family residential areas and conservation of open lands. The Hillside Federation believes that the proposed construction of 5 townhomes with minute space between each building, located in an area designated by the city as a high fire severity zone within a neighborhood of 1 and 2 story single-family homes, will negatively impact the neighborhood and ultimately alter the character of the community to its detriment. We urge you to uphold the policy of the Bel Air Beverly Crest Community Plan and grant the appeal. Thank you.
Thank you. Noah Molstein.
Noah Molstein, Planning and Land Use Deputy for Councilmember Koretz's office. I've been working with this case probably since day one, and more times than not, we get developers that don't work with the community, and this one here happened to really go above and beyond. So it's quite a breath of fresh air to really see him just kind of sit down at the table multiple times, redesign the project, and just really listen to the community's concerns as much as possible. So it's hard. We don't have a lot of tools in our toolbox to come after this project, and I've worked with the community and talked to them and asked them if they could suggest any tools, and it's been tough, and it's just it's a tough situation. But I mean, ultimately we've reviewed the project, we've looked at it through and through, and we don't oppose West LA Area Planning Commission's we don't oppose their decision to uphold the appeal. So again, it's just these small lot subdivisions we see. This is kind of like the unintended consequence where these projects kind of fall into these neighborhoods. But if you look at this neighborhood from the beginning, it's a transitional neighborhood. You got gas stations with R3, with RD 1.5, with then a break, R1, and then some RE9. So it's transitioning into a less dense community, and I mean it's allowed it's allowed to be there. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Thank you. If I could ask staff to come up, please. Just one quick question. question by which we often review these cases is, how would you justify that the project is actually consistent with the community plan?
Well, do you want to speak on that, or do you want me to try?
Good afternoon. Jay Kim, City of City Planner, and I was also the Deputy Advisory Agency. So the question is, how is this small lot consistent with the general plan? In other words,
How is the project consistent with the community plan?
Community plan being the land use component of the general plan. This project is otherwise a by right project, meaning it complies with all the setbacks, the small lot ordinance, which is a little bit more permissive than your other sets of regulations. But in other words, height district, the underlying zone, the density, they're all by right. The reason why it's before you here, along with the Deputy Advisory Agency and the West LA Commission, is really this state law that says, well, if you want to cut up land, you have to go through this process. But once you do that, then as long as you meet the implementing tools, in other words, the code of the general plan or the community plan, then you're good to go. So they're not asking for anything else. They're not deviating from anything else other than the fact that they're wanting to cut up land.
So they're consistent, well, they're complying with existing codes, and it's by right.
Yes.
And they're not asking for any discretion approval, but that they have to go through this process.
This division of land process.
To ensure that they have complied with those requirements.
Right. Yes.
Okay. And generally speaking, if we have a number of these projects in that community, would we not then disrupt the community plan and the intent of the community plan?
Yes, and if I may, just provide an exhibit. And this is our zoning map, what we call ZMIS. And I just want to provide this information visually because it's a pretty good story. If you look at this, where the red is, towards the middle top page, that's the subject site. If you look at the red portion, the red lots, they're the retail center. Around it are the orange, which are R3 and RD 1.5, which are medium density. And then it transitions out to R1 along Bellagio. So, and if you look further to the north, where the streets are pink, they're the hillside, they're the estates. And so in other words, this is really well planned out neighborhood. You have the retail center buffered and transitioned with the medium density, and then the R1s, and then the estate much larger hillside homes. It doesn't really get any better than that. Not all of LA is planned this well, but in this case, the issue here is it's at the end of that block face where the end of the RD 1.5 is, and the four lots closer to the retail, the pink, are actually developed with multifamily apartments and condos. This particular lot, along with, I believe, 3 lots adjacent to that, are still improved with the nice, quaint, single-family homes. So visually, if you didn't check your zoning before you bought the house, you think it's zoned for R1, but it's not. So essentially, that's where the community may be concerned about the change, but really it is in conformance with the community plan. So I just wanted to show that in terms of how it conforms to the community plan.
Thank you. Thank you. That's fine. Sorry, sir, you've had your time.
It's in the file. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. So with that, got that. Why don't we have, after reviewing this, seems like the APC did its job, and we will move to sustain the APC decision and deny the appeal. We'll move that to full council with the chair's recommendation. This is in council tomorrow. Okay, this is in full council tomorrow. Okay, thank you. Any more items?
No, Councilman.
No public comment. Meeting adjourned.
Yes, I just want to confirm that, I think you said it earlier, there will be public hearings on all these matters at full council.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.